Welcome to another episode of College Insider. I'm Anmar Goodrich-Boyce. There has been an increase in environmental issues affecting government buildings. It has become a health hazard for many working in these institutions. Our reporter Symphony Griffith took a closer look at the concerns of these workers.
Environmental problems are nothing new in Barbados. In 2005, the Louis Secondary School, also known as Roebuck Secondary, was closed after an investigation revealed that there were airborne contaminants. Harold Oxley, occupational hygienist of REA EnviroHealth International, the consultant group contracted by government to investigate environmental problems in government buildings, discussed the testing of building environments and the impact of biological contaminants on air quality and the health of individuals.
I would hear quite a bit of concern relating to dust and mold. Those are the two major areas. We often hear in the press environmental concerns, but when you read further, you hear a lot about dust, mold, and then also odor. So those seem to be the three main areas that keep popping up for various reasons, and especially with schools, we hear about many odor concerns.
Government buildings such as the old National Insurance Building on Fairchild Street, the Treasury Building in Bridge Street, Bridgetown, Town and Country Planning Department, the Garrison St. Michael, and more recently, the newly constructed Halls of Justice Supreme Court Complex on White Park Road have all experienced problems related to poor air quality, mold, and dust. As a result, workers from these institutions complained of health issues such as headaches, tiredness, blocked or runny noses, dry, itchy skin, sore eyes, throat irritation, and rashes. With regards to these issues, Attorney at Law Sirlene Murray reminds us about the Health and Safety Act, which has been enacted to protect the workers of these establishments.
This piece of legislation places an obligation on employees to make sure that the environment, the surroundings, and the general workplace does not compromise in any way the health of workers. Section 104 of the legislation allows an employee who fears that the health is being compromised because of the environment at work, allows them to not to work. They're not obligated to work in an environment that they reasonably consider to be unsafe or unhealthy.
Mr. Oxley further elaborated on the types of tests conducted.
When we are called in to do any kind of assessment, even if we are told that the concern is mold or bacteria, we do not accept that. We do not start there. We do what's called an environmental scan. Mm-hmm. In such a scan, we will look for a range of chemical and biological and physical parameters. So it would indeed, from the biological end, include bacteria and mold. We would look for also things like pollen and allergens, maybe like dust mite allergens and so on. From the chemical perspective, we would look for evidence of infiltration of exhaust, volatile organic compounds, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, those kind of things. And if the business or the school happens to be close in industry, we'll also scan the air for potential products coming from the industry. We also look for particles, fibers, dust, carbon particles, and so on. Mm-hmm. And we will measure things like temperature, humidity, dew point, which will give us some idea about the ability or the favorability of the environment to allow the mold and bacteria to proliferate.
So, this then leads to the question, is there really something called sick building syndrome?
Okay, in terms of sick building syndrome, definitely there is something called that. But what I find very interesting is that the name is abused and misused in Barbados. Mm-hmm. To understand sick building syndrome, you need to understand the word syndrome. And the word syndrome is applied when there are signs and symptoms, medical signs and symptoms being manifested by a person, and the cause or causes are not actually obvious. That's where syndrome comes from. Once the cause then becomes obvious or known, then the name syndrome should not be correctly applied. We have some scenarios in Barbados where buildings are less than hospitable. Persons go in the buildings and they have issues. Mm-hmm. And my determination is that very often, having done an assessment, the cause of this discomfort or even the allergens and the diseases of the persons can be found. Mm-hmm. So if it is found, then it's not really a syndrome. Mm-hmm. So I would have been on record saying that in my opinion, there are not many sick buildings in Barbados. There are many buildings that have problems, and the correct term then is building-related illness.
The education sector has also been riddled by environmental problems. To name a few incidents, in 2016, the Combermere School was forced to close several times due to 2 acacia trees on the compound that were reportedly making students and teachers ill. Health implications such as facial blisters and upset stomachs were reported. That same year, we had the issue of the Lodge School, which mainly affected the staff room. It was reported that moisture in the structure caused fungus to emerge and the growth of spores to come through the wood that was stuck to a wall structure. In 2018, students of St. Lawrence Primary in Christchurch were relocated to the Arthur Smith Primary School at Pleasant Hall Land, St. Matthias, Christchurch, after the sewage problem on the south coast had forced the closure of that learning institution. Also in 2018, gases emanating from septic wells, mold, rotten students' lunches, and poor maintenance have been found to be the main culprits behind the environmental health problems found at the Lestervan School. And recently, Sharon Primary School was closed on September 16th as a result of environmental issues, with several teachers and students complaining of illness. Students and teachers have been falling ill since the last school term, with fevers, itchiness, dizziness, vomiting, and cramps. Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, Santia Bradshaw, said government continues to implement different strategies to ensure teachers and students are placed in a safe yet comfortable learning environment, and assured Barbadians that a plan is on the way to deal with these problems.
This is a year of, for me, lessons learned, and I think moving forward we will now be able to put systems in place from earlier to be able to address it. The good thing is that by next year I don't think that we will have the same issues, because some of the outstanding things this year have actually been addressed. There may be new issues, but in terms of the old issues that have really plagued the system and certainly plagued a lot of the teachers, we've tried to knock out some of those. The other thing too is that we are looking at the international funding, being able to make a case for the rebuild of some of the schools, because these plants really are, they're costing the government and the people of Barbados substantial sums of money to maintain. And I think, we need to prepare for the next 20 years as opposed to trying to make good things that you can't make good in the short space of time. If I fix one building and I treat it for the termite infestation, or I rebuild the wooden structure, the next building needs to be treated, or the roof sheeting needs to be replaced, or the ceiling needs to be replaced. So one may look good, but then you have to move on to another area of the plant that has to be fixed as well. So those are some of the challenges, the recurring problems that we've been having. And I think the solution is really to move towards what was intended, which was a complete rebuild of some of the structures, in order for us to have a bit of time, a little breathing space where we're not constantly going back all of the time.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time for another episode of College Insider.